Sal Paolantonio, ESPN national correspondent covering the NFL. Sal Pal, how are you, buddy?
Dan, great to be with you this morning. Thanks for having me on the show.
Let me start with the bigger picture, the actual performance of the game. Then we'll get to Jalen Carter. But what did last night tell you about the Eagles?
That Jalen Hurts can get you out of anything. I think, that's been talked about for the last 12 hours, but it's true. So here comes Matt Eberflus, the new defensive coordinator of the Cowboys, and he decides to play match zone, and they take away A.J. Brown, and they limit Devontae Smith, and they stack the box on Saquon Barkley. But it's sort of a pick your poison thing with the Eagles offense because if you don't have some kind of spy operation, effective spy operation or spy who can match up to Jalen Hurts as a runner, you're dead. You're DIW. You got no chance because this guy's too strong, too smart. He understands how to decipher it pre-snap. He gets that snapshot, that Peyton Manning snapshot pre-snap. Then the ball is snapped and he's got another snapshot and he is recognizing and deciphering what defenses are doing. He did it against Steve Spagnuolo in Super Bowl 59. It's one of the more unheralded stories about Super Bowl 59. And the reason why Jalen Hurts won the MVP in Super Bowl 59 is because he's really become an effective recognition guy. And I mean, I disagree with Tom Brady. I think Jalen, he's got great athletic skill, but he's really great at deciphering what defenses are doing pre and post snap.
What was Brady's criticism?
Well, Brady said that I think last week he was doing one of those media tours, and he said that right now quarterbacks are not as cerebral as they once were.
Yeah.
And that may be true in a general sense, but I think the two guys that were in the Super Bowl last year, that's not true. Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. It's certainly not true for Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Josh Allen, and certainly not true for Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, that feels like it's you guys get by on your athleticism, whereas, me and Breeze and Peyton, we got by on outsmarting the opposition. And you're right with Mahomes. Mahomes in any generation. And I thought Jalen Hurts last night, aside from the two Super Bowls, like that's a game that I'm going to pin on him. He won the game last night. He won the game by making smart decisions. They take away everybody. And when they needed a big play, they got it. And I loved it. And I've said before, I didn't consider him a great quarterback. I think he's great as the quarterback of the Eagles. He's the right guy for that team. And I might have to upgrade that to being a great quarterback. I don't know if he cares about where he's ranked in those kind of lists, but man, the guy he's a winner, I think, and that might be the ultimate compliment that you give any athlete. He's a winner.
I was in Brazil last year for their opener, as you remember. He turned the ball over 3 times. They still won the game. Last night, super efficient, didn't turn the ball over. And, they had 38 rushing attempts. If you have 38 rushing attempts in the National Football League to go along with 23 completions, you take those two numbers. That's the Vermeil formula. It is rushing attempts and completions. And you're going to win a lot of football games if you don't turn the ball over because of the efficiency. I agree with Sirianni's post-game comments about that. But to dovetail to the Jalen Carter deal, if I'm Jalen Carter, Dan, I walk across the locker room and I say to Jalen Hurts, let me write a big fat check to your charity for bailing me out. Because if Jalen Hurts doesn't bail out the Eagles last night and bail out by me, Jalen Carter, we're all talking about only the Eagles losing because Jalen Carter was thrown out for spitting before the ball was snapped.
There's a lot more to that, like giving it context of looking at it. And, I've had the benefit to look at it all morning long of seeing Dak Prescott's role. Because Dak does play a role in this, Sal. And now it doesn't exonerate Jalen Carter. But if you look at Dak, where he is, and he said, well, I couldn't spit on my lineman. Well, He's like 7 yards back and then walks up in between his linemen and then spits. And then I think there's a wink to Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter then goes, wait a minute, what's going on? They're jawing back and forth, and he spits on him. How do you think the NFL will assess Jalen Carter? Any punishment after this?
Good question. Don't know. The forensics are obvious. You just laid it out. They're going to go through that, and they're going to go through that with an eye towards their point of emphasis in the offseason, which is we want to cut down on the unsportsmanlike behavior of NFL players. So there's that lens that we have to put on it. And we also have to put on it the fact that Jalen Carter has been penalized, 14 times in the last 2 seasons, his first 2 years, with 4 personal fouls, which is tied for most in the league. So this is an NFL problem right now that they have to figure out what to do. I don't think they should suspend Jalen Carter. I don't, because he already really served the full game suspension, in my view, by getting ejected before the ball was snapped. I think it's time served, man, is what I'm saying. Yeah. So, and looking at Dak Prescott's role, I agree with you. Both of them will probably get fined, a big fat fine. And maybe there'll be a suspension, but I don't think that Jalen Carter should be suspended. But the other thing too, Dan, is big picture, widen out the lens here. Jalen Carter wrecked the divisional game against the Rams, wrecked the NFC Championship game, wrecked the Super Bowl in allowing Josh Sweat and Milton Williams to climb all over Patrick Mahomes II in that football game. And I study some film, not as much as my colleagues at NFL Films, and I get the numbers from our guys. He's the most double-team defensive tackle in the NFL last year. So that allows so many other things to operate because he's on the field. I'm going to throw the name out there. He's Jerome Brown 2.0 because of the way he occupies the middle of the field. And as Nick Sirianni said last night, we got to have this guy on the field. So it's up to the Eagles front office, the Players Council. I talked to Lane Johnson after the game last night. He said the Players Council is going to get involved, figure out how to fix Jalen Carter, who, by the way, Dan, he's on a track to be one of the highest paid defensive players ever at D-tackle. The Eagles let a lot of guys go because they know they got to pay Jalen Carter. But if this continues, what do?
Talking to Sal Paolantonio, ESPN national correspondent covering the NFL. Yeah, I picked him as my defensive player of the year. He has entered that Aaron Donald category of he is going to disrupt. And you're right. You know, those kind of players, they're few and far between. But he's almost going down that Ndamukong Suh path where, you know, it's not the opposition, it's him. It's the personality that he brings onto the football field.
Well, you know, I've been around him a little bit. He's a tremendous player, but they've got to figure out how, as Sirianni said last night, and I agree with Nick about this. He said, I want my players to play with passion, but within the rules. And so now they've got to make sure this guy gets it right. However they're going to do that, he has to get it right because, you know, you're right. He's on the doorstep of Defensive Player of the Year.
I guess everybody would say the same thing watching the game, that if they had a spy on Jalen Hurts, that spy did a good job of staying undercover because we never really saw them. Does Micah Parsons make that much of a difference last night if they have him and they don't have Clark?
Yes, 100%. Micah Parsons is just so athletic and so smart. Line him up anywhere and he disrupts. His speed, he can track down guys, including Jalen Hurts. Yes, 100%. Micah Parsons. I mean, imagine you're Matt Eberflus and your head coach, and they're saying, we're going to have this guy on the field week 1, and then all of a sudden, poof, he's gone. By the way, I'll have what Howie Roseman's having because the Giants just sort of give up on Saquon Barkley, and then the Cowboys the next year trade Micah Parsons. I mean, Howie didn't have to lift a finger, and two division rivals got rid of their best two players, Dan.
Great to talk to you. As always, congrats. Contract extension?
That is correct. Contract extension. I'm still here, Dan. Still here.
How many years?
This is year 30 at the mothership, as you like to call it. And listen, as you know, you have great support and love here, and it's fantastic.
Thanks for joining us, Sal. Congrats. Sal Paolantonio, ESPN national correspondent covering the NFL. 30 years. I survived 18.